Mori is a fast-paced, top-down base management game where players navigate a haunted forest in search of different types of wood for upgrading their base during a dim-lit day cycle, followed by a reaction-based boss battle with haunted trees during the witching hour. The player will start the game with a base-level camp at the beginning of the day cycle. They will have a set window of time each day to navigate the forest in search of the different types of trees needed to upgrade their camp level, and the time will vary between 5 and 7 minutes each day. The player will then need to click and hold on the trees they find to successfully cut them down and add them to their inventory. Once the player has upgraded their camp level, they will obtain information on the location of a new upgraded axe. These axes not only increase the player's damage in the boss battles, but also decrease the time it takes to chop down all the trees below its level. The player can return at any time to their camp during the daylight cycle, where they can either instantly initiate the boss battle, should they have the required axe level, by clicking on the icon outside of their camp, or take time pursuing upgrades to their camp and resting until the next daylight cycle. The player must make it back to their camp before the daylight cycle timer runs out, or they will become lost in the woods, losing all of the wood they've acquired during their last venture. The player will then respawn at their camp during the beginning of the next daylight cycle. If the player makes it back to their camp successfully during the daylight cycle, all of the acquired wood will be added to their stash, where it will always remain until the player utilizes it for upgrades or trading for medicinal items. The player's goal is to defeat 5 haunted trees that possess the forest and lay traps for the player. These haunted trees will require higher level cutting tools, which can be found in random places throughout the woods once the player has increased their base. The player can also douse their tools in holy water or purchase healing items at the camp for collected wood. Holy water allows the tools to cut at faster rates as well as deal more damage during the boss battles. Along with the timer, the player has a set amount of health at the beginning of each day. They must avoid the traps left in the forest by the haunted trees and end their day by returning to the base before their health reaches 0. Should that happen, the player loses all the wood in their inventory and respawn with half health at the next daytime cycle, so it's in their best interest to make it back. There are 3 different types of traps employed by the trees: splinters, snags, and widowmakers, which each have associated timers with buttons. If the player clicks the button before the timer runs out, they can avoid the traps. When the player has successfully acquired a new axe and returned to their base, they can challenge the next available haunted tree during the next witching hour. If the player is successful in defeating these trees, they will unlock a new area of the forest, plagued by more traps from haunted trees, as well as the materials required to improve their base further. The antagonizing forces in this game come in the form of timers and traps from the haunted trees, as well as the haunted trees themselves. They each hold the power to negatively impact the player's game should they be careless with their health or time. The player will need to manage their time efficiently in the daylight, chopping down nearby trees in preparation for their nightly upgrades and repairs. The theme of Mori is a suspenseful haunted forest combined with autophobia, or the fear of being alone. A game that is generally similar mechanics would be Clash of Clans or other games of the base building strategy genre. Those games generally focus primarily on the upgrade of the player's base in defense of foreign attacks, but in Mori, players will be upgrading their base in order to achieve their main goal, which is new axes and the introduction of the boss battles during the night cycle. The play possibilities that this creates ranges from the players attempting to run through the game with just the starting axe, leading to very long and risky boss battles, or players spending a large amount of time in the easier levels gathering wood and getting the best weapons and upgrades in preparation of the next boss battle. The risks for this type of game include the large amount of assets required for creation, as well as the amount of animations required for the traps, boss battles, and camp maintenance or upgrades. In order to mitigate the amount of assets, the bosses will all feature the same design, with color being the main or only difference between them. This can cut down on the design time while still leaving them visually identifiable as different bosses, and in order to mitigate the animations required for boss battles, the enemy's main form of attack will come in the form of rotation. This means the object can be rotated with separate colliders on each branch, allowing for the main boss animation to come in the form of a relatively simple in-game transformation. In order to mitigate the animation risk with regards to the player's camp, they will be limited to 4 levels and 4 different stations to build and upgrade. This will require roughly a dozen different icons, including the upgradable bases, resting area, camp exit, and boss icons.